So hopefully my screen is sharing now. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm delighted to be here alongside our colleagues from Retirement Pathways, Anne and Jane, and we're here to support you through your planning of retirement. Tonight, really, it's just about helping you shape the life you want in the years ahead and understanding how you put the right financial foundations into place to make that future reality. So, as Celeste said, my name is Russell Bruce. I'm part of the advice team here at Flying Colours. I'm an independent financial advisor, and I've spent over 20 years now in the financial world, helping people feel more confident and more comfortable about their future. I'm also very proud that I hold a 4.9 out of 5 rating on VouchedFor from my existing clients. So here's what I'll aim to chat through tonight. So we'll look at the key financial steps that can make the biggest difference in those 5 to 10 years before retirement. Then we'll talk about how we set up your finances so you've got real choice, control, and flexibility as you move into that next stage. We'll take a look at what income you might need to cover in retirement and the different places that income can come from. Anne and Jane from Retirement Pathways will split the session, focusing on the psychological and emotional shift that comes with entering into retirement. They'll look at how this stage affects identity, purpose, day-to-day life, and what can make that transition feel smoother. After this, I'll show you how to use cash flow modeling, or how we use cash flow modeling, should I say. It's a really effective way of bringing your future into the present and seeing whether you're on track, if there's any tweaks we can make, and just try and make the plan even stronger. And finally, if we have enough time, we'll wrap up with a quick Q&A session. So just to start the evening, just a very quick poll. It's just one question to answer. And that answer is how confident that you'll have enough money to live comfortably for the rest of your life. So in a second, Celeste will put the options on screen. It should come up giving you an option between 0 and 10. So 0 being not confident at all and 10 being very confident. So I'll just give it a couple of seconds. I can see the results coming in. Oh, so we've got some quite confident people on this call tonight. I'll be honest, not what I was expecting. Just give it a couple of more seconds. So that's really interesting. I think that's damn. So we have a confident group on this call tonight. So if I just get rid of that. So it was really interesting. So don't worry if you don't feel very confident. What I'm going to show next is just a report from Nucleus that shows about the retirement confidence in the UK. So out of that 0 to 10, actually in the UK at the moment, the score is actually 4.2 out of 10. So most people don't feel that confident. So just really quickly, a quick word on who Nucleus are. So Nucleus are a UK-based investment firm. They work with a retirement platform that works closely with advisors like myself. They look after more than 250,000 clients and they manage over 80 billion in assets. So the reason I did that poll is just because this links directly to their latest research. So what they did, they surveyed over 4,300 people, asking them to rate retirement confidence on that same scale from 0 to 10. So what really stood out is that actually retirement confidence is falling in the UK. So they were saying that 26% of adults don't feel they'll have enough to live comfortably, which is down from 34% last year. Even those among age 55 and over, confidence has dropped quite considerably from 45% down to 37% this year. And as you'll see on this right-hand side of my slide, the gender gap remains. So women are generally less confident, less informed, and less likely to have taken action. So the three main areas or points that came from the report is the first, that many UK adults are underestimating what a comfortable retirement may cost. So around 39% feel that they need between 20 and 40,000 pounds a year. But Pensions UK estimates that real figure is close to actually 43,900 for an individual and 60,600 for a couple. How they've worked that out is that includes a 2-week holiday abroad, around £75 a week for food and £600 a year for home maintenance. But it doesn't cover mortgage or rent payments because they assume this will be paid by the time retirement comes round. I think for me, what was more striking is that 17% of adults didn't actually know how much they may need, which was just showing how much uncertainty there is and how much planning is still needed. The second point is a big one. the research shows that 43% of people are not contributing to pensions at all. And so most people at the minute are saving around 5 to 10% of their income, which is basically the auto enrollment minimum. So the research is really clear that that level is just not enough for that comfortable retirement. Uncannily, the confidence rate is only 4.3 out of 10, which is roughly the same score as the confidence index. But the striking part is that people who save more feel much more confident, yet no one is hardly doing it. So it says that only 2% of people are saving between 15 and 20% of their income. Once they do that, confidence is jumping to 5.7, and another 2% who save over 20%, that confidence is rising to nearly 6 out of 10. So I think the message is really simple there. The more you save, the more secure you feel. So even small increases can make a meaningful difference to your long-term outcome, sorry, and peace of mind. The third and final point is that there's just real barriers stopping people from contributing more. And the biggest is obviously the cost of living. So 41% of people are saying that everyday expenses are making it really hard to save. 24% are held back by their mortgage or rent payments, and 16% is by other debt payments. So I think when day-to-day costs feel tight, long-term saving just naturally gets pushed aside and further down your list. But for me, pension contributions really do remain one of the most powerful tools you have. Obviously, you get tax relief, tax-efficient growth, you'll get your employee contributions, the power of compounding, and the real flexibility, especially when you reach retirement. I think it's generally really difficult now to find anything else that delivers that kind of long-term value. Just a very quick important point as well that come out from the report is that 44% of people were really worried about pensions coming into scope for inheritance tax. And I think that's with good reason. From next April, any unused pension funds and pension death benefits will be counted as part of your estate for inheritance tax. Right now, they sit outside, but this change could mean that your pension might actually push your estate over the nil rate band and may trigger a tax bill. I think what's striking is basically how few people still actually don't know about this. Awareness is still low, and many are still assuming that the pensions aren't touched when I'm speaking to people day to day. But as I always say, good news is we still have time. There's a clear window between now and next April to understand the rules. We can help calculate any potential impact, and we can put a plan in place so you're not caught out. I think this is why reviewing your pensions and your estate planning now, not later or after next year, really matters. So the overall conclusion from Nucleus's report is that retirement confidence, on contrary to our poll, is falling fast. So we're down to 4.2 out of 10, which is the lowest ever recorded by Nucleus when they've done this over the years. And I think one of the main things is that only 1 in 4 people feel they do not have enough to live comfortably in retirement. And when you look into it, the group that's feeling it most, the people aged between 35 and 54, so right in the middle of their working lives. So a big part of this comes down to planning and education. Many people in this report have said that they wish they'd learned about pensions earlier. And I think when we look through the data, the earlier the plan, the more confident you feel. And there's one thing that consistently boosts confidence than anything else, and that's taking action, but especially with the support of a financial advisor. And the key takeaway is really simple. Confidence grows when you start planning, you understand your options, and get real clear guidance. So last one of the night, I promise this will be your last poll. So just a really simple question, yes or no. Who on this call has a formal financial retirement plan in place? I tell you what, guys, you're really fast on this poll. So I think we're probably looking a little bit like Brexit, right on that edge of 50-50, aren't we? So, oh, just changes still, give it a few seconds. So 55% no, and 45% yes. So thank you very much for answering that. That's the last one from me tonight. So why does planning matter? So when we look to build you a financial plan, we'll look at a whole range of areas. But when it comes to preparing for retirement, there's just a big few themes that always seem to shape our conversation. So first, what do you actually want your retirement to look like? This is where it gets exciting. So we'll talk about the go-go years. So these are the active years when you're traveling, ticking off bucket list goals and really making the most of your time. Then you'll enter the slow go years. That's just when life naturally becomes a little steadier. And finally, the no go years, when your priorities shift again and that spending pattern tends to change. Then once we've got that, we'll dig into what those dreams and plans actually cost, because I think understanding your lifestyle spending is just key to building a plan that works. And then we'll look at also how long that retirement might need to last. So people are living longer. Longevity is one of the biggest financial challenges we're facing at this moment, and it really does need planning. And of course, we'll also explore major risks and considerations that can basically shape your journey, but we'll do this together. When we do a plan, we'll stress test that plan. We'll look at the impact also of retiring earlier or later. The last thing you want to do is run out of money, and vice versa. You don't want to be the richest person in the graveyard. Then there's the emotional and psychological side of retiring, which is just as important as the financial side. I've got clients who have really struggled into the transition and others who absolutely thrive in it. Anne and Jane will be covering this much more than I will during the session, and they'll be here afterwards to help you as well. But all of this together just builds a plan that supports the lifestyle you want at every stage of your retirement. We're looking to build one that keeps you energized, confident, and aligns what matters with you the most. I also have a lot of clients who come to me when they reach their 50s, and they'll say something often shifts on a deeper level. And they'll start thinking more about their age, their health, and what the next chapter may actually look like. They say that time is feeling more precious. They've seen their parents aging. They say life seems to just speed up at that point, and the idea of one day suddenly becomes real and feels much closer than it ever did. I think all of us at Flying Colours, we see this all the time. I think people intend to save more, get organised and feel secure, but as we all know, life is busy and those plans tend to slip. That's why we'll always ask, what is your why for retirement, and why don't we start moving towards it now? Even those small steps you can make can reshape your future. It's not about living less right now. It's about making sure that money supports the life you want today and tomorrow. And when we talk about retirement and how much you'll need, it really helps to think of those three stages: the go-go years, the no-go years, and the slow-go years, which I just said in the wrong order. But understanding these three essential planning steps help us plan not just how much you need, but when you'll actually need it. And that's just so you can enjoy those early years, those active years, without worrying about the later ones. So I think it's really important to understand what makes a comfortable retirement. And as we probably always do, when we talk about how much you'll actually need in retirement, the truth is it all depends on the lifestyle you want to enjoy. Right now, the average single pensioner in the UK lives on around 14,600 a year, and the average couple is around £30,900. And that's just the reality for most people today. But according to Pensions UK, it's just not enough what they call a comfortable retirement. So the figures they have is around 60,600 years for a year, 600 a year for a couple, and 43,900 a year for a single person. To put it in perspective, an average £100,000 pension pot provides around 5,000 a year, plus £25,000 worth of tax-free cash. From April, the full state pension will be £12,546.60. And if you both qualify, if you're in a couple, it'll be just over £25,000. And so where does it actually leave most people? So as you can see on the left-hand side of this slide, for many people in their 50s, the average pension sits somewhere between 80,000 and around 140,000. And as you can see, that's just not enough to reach that Pensions UK comfortable level. So I think this is exactly why planning early, making sure you're checking in regularly, will just make such a difference. Retirement planning doesn't need to be guesswork. So we talked a bit about what retirement may cost and how much we've got, but the bigger question is perhaps how long that retirement needs to last. So the latest ONS data is quite eye-opening. A 55-year-old man today can expect to live around to 84, and a woman to around age 87. And many people are living well into the 90s, and more than ever, more are reaching age 100. So that means that retirement could last 25, 30 years or more, potentially as long as you work in life. And because healthy life expectancy isn't rising at the same rate, you may need more financial support later on, not less. So longevity is going to shape everything. How much you're going to need to save, what you can afford, how much you can afford to retire with, how you draw on that income, and how you make sure the money lasts as long as you do. So again, planning early, reviewing often. It's not optional, it's essential. So here at Flying Clubs, we've got many clients, and a lot of clients come to me at their first initial meeting, and there's a few common reasons that people think they can't retire yet. The first is money. Many assume they need a huge pot, but most people spend less than they expect. Spending is higher at the start, then it settles. And once you add in other incomes like part-time work or rental incomes or the pensions you may have, a lot of people tend to already have enough. The second is timing. People worry about the world economics, how the news changes, how markets move. It's easy to feel like right now is not the right time. I find that most people feel this way. And if you just wait for that perfect condition, you may never retire. The third is how people feel they're going to fill their time. So work becomes a big part of who we are. Stopping can feel strange. I've never met a retiree yet who couldn't find things to do. People always find purpose once they have the time. And it leads to probably my main point. If you have enough and you know you can fill your time, there may actually be nothing stopping you at this point. We can always find reasons to delay retiring. While you still have your health and the energy, it's incredibly valuable. If you plan well and you don't have to wait for the perfect conditions, don't let fear hold you back, and you'll be absolutely fine. So for many people, I think the word retirement still brings up an old-fashioned picture, one job for life, a handshake on your last day, and a quiet final chapter. But life doesn't look like that anymore. People are living much longer, healthier, and active lives. Most of us have had several jobs, several pensions, and when we step back from full-time work, we often have decades ahead of us. So retirement isn't a switch that you just flip, it's more of a transition. Most people don't go from full-time work to just doing nothing. They tend to ease into it, reducing hours, doing different roles or work that's lighter or just more enjoyable. The key, I think, is just keep moving forward and maintain a strong sense of purpose, which Anna Jane will cover a little bit more in a second. Modern retirees are just not slowing down. A lot of my clients are traveling, helping with grandchildren, volunteering, learning new skills. A lot work part-time, but it's often on their own terms. And what I'm finding as well is that couples now rarely retire at the same time, and that's completely normal. The financial landscape's changing. Today, pensions are much more flexible, allowing you to phase your retirement and to shape your income around the life that actually you want. And I think that that's the real point, that retirement is yours to define. It's no longer just about stopping, it's about having more choice, and choice over your time, your priorities, and what matters to you the most. So if your finances suggest that you may already have enough, speak to us. Just really simple, just start planning now. So what I'll try and do, I'll have a look at some areas to think about and where we can possibly help. So today is just something really simple. It's just about structuring your finances so you can have more choice and flexibility later on. It isn't about me asking you to create complex spreadsheet. It's just about having confidence and feeling in control of your future. Even if your retirement's 10 years away, I think the starting point isn't just money, it's more about you. So if you could this week, if you've got a few minutes spare, just picture what a typical day in retirement may look like. You don't need a perfect answer. So just ask yourself, what does a great day look like? How do you want to spend your time? Who do you want to spend your time with? And what would make that chapter more meaningful? And if you do share life with someone, talk it through together. I often get clients when it comes to couple and they haven't had a conversation. It often brings up a few surprises, let's put it that way. And once you've kind of answered those four questions, if you just jot it down and then it becomes a bit more palatable, then what we'll start to do and we start to do is just start to gather your financial bits and pieces, pension, savings, bank statements, etc. Just get them all in one place. You don't need to understand it, you just need to see it. I think digging through old paperwork and logging on into old accounts, it can save a lot of stress. Most people tend to feel a lot better once they start to get organized. I think when everything's in front of you, what you'll see is where your income could come from, what's steady, what's flexible, what's guaranteed, and that's where planning can really help. From there, you can start to see how your income and spending will actually fit together. By getting clear on the life you want to live, and just as much as getting a better sense of what your expenses may look like, it becomes far easier to see what your money actually needs to deliver. You don't need a whole plan, you just need a few smart steps that can turn your retirement into something you worry about, into something you're looking forward to. So once you've taken those steps, this is where we can come in. We can help you. We can help turn your ideas into a clear vision of retirement. We'll pull everything together so you can see exactly where you stand. We'll position your pensions and investment savings to support your lifestyle, and we'll align your plans if you're a couple. I think we'll explore phasing into retirement. We'll make sure your money lasts as long as you do. We'll optimize any key decisions along the way, and we'll look at cash flow. So that'll show what you truly need versus what you simply want. We'll keep it simple. We'll do everything one step at a time, and we'll always do that journey with you. So really, the essential steps for a confident retirement is to get crystal clear on the income you'll need. I think in every stage of retirement, I think this helps you stop over or under saving and gives you a realistic target. If you gather all those pensions, as I said, and then we can review them properly. If you can, try and maximize those pension contributions, especially while tax relief is still available. It's one of the most powerful returns you'll ever get. And once you stop working, it disappears. If you check your state pension on the gov.uk site, what that'll do is help. It's one of the most important steps. It'll help because it'll show you what the guarantee base of your future income is. It'll allow you to see what you receive, when you can claim it, and if there's any gaps and how to fill them. Once we know that figure, we can build a proper plan around your other pensions and assets, and we can look at the most tax efficient way to draw from them. If you reduce debts where possible and strengthen your cash buffer, lower outgoings means more freedom. And just we'll make sure your investments match your time horizon as well. Lower outgoings just means more freedom, and we'll put estate planning documents and protection into place. This just ensure that your wishes are carried out and that your family is protected. So especially before retirement, it's the small decisions that compound into big results, where clarity basically replaces uncertainty. So basically, where your future lifestyle starts to take shape, let's start now. Let's start now. So just to reiterate my point, people can try and manage finances alone, but the data is clear. Good advice makes a huge difference. Research from Royal London and the ILC, the International Longevity Centre, show that people who took professional advice ended up around £47,000 better off over 10 years. So a huge life-changing amount. And the biggest gains weren't just for the wealthy, they were for people who were just simply getting by. So the key message is ongoing advice matters. Having someone in your corner over the long term just will lead to far better outcomes. So I've covered just the financial side of retirement there, but there's a whole piece that's just as important, and the psychological and emotional shift that comes with the new stage of life. And that's where Anne and Jane from Retirement Pathways come in. So Anne and Jane will take you through what really happens when you step out of work into retirement, the identity change, the routine, the purpose of it all. After that, I'll share the most powerful planning tool we have for anyone approaching retirement, and that's our cash flow modeling. So this is where we'll map out withdrawal strategies, test scenarios, stress test your plan example, and see where it stands up to real life. But first of all, let me hand over to Jane and Anne.
Okay, thank you very much, Russ. Lots to cover there, and we're going to build on quite a lot of what Russ has said, but add to it as well. So I'm going to share a different set of slides now, and I should be coming through. Great. So, well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us. So I'm Anne Cannings. I'm one of 3 partners in Retirement Pathways. Between us, we've got over 100 years in managing transition and change, coaching and exec development, leadership. I personally spent 20 years in the defence sector. I then spent 20 years running my own leadership development business. And since 2018, I've specialised in retirement transition. So that's a little bit about me. Retirement Pathways, Our mission is to change the perception of retirement, to improve people's experience of retirement. Everything we do is research-led, evidence-based. So that's just a little bit about who we are and what we do. Russ has already alluded to the fact that not everybody finds retirement and the retirement transition as easy as they thought it would. And so just because we are evidence-based, I'll introduce this to you. And we're looking at the psychological and emotional well-being of people who move into retirement. First off, we recognize that there are a bunch of people, about 20%, according to research, who immediately get a boost to their psychological well-being. See, it's the green line there. And for those people, what typifies them is that they've usually had a very physically demanding or stressful job. That job has at least ended up with low job satisfaction. And moving away from that and leaving that behind immediately has given them a boost in their psychological well-being, about 20%. We know from research that about 50% really don't experience any difference in their psychological well-being. So you might think, well, that's okay. I'm good with that. I don't need to worry. The point about those people is they've already put a lot of planning into their retirement. They've tended to do some sort of tapered or phased working. So they've cut down their hours or gone self-employed and had a consultancy, something like that. They tended to have done a lot of financial planning, but they've also done a lot of planning about how they will spend their time, how they will find purpose, what they will do with themselves. And they tend to have a partner who has retired at a similar time. And as Russ said, that's not that common these days. There's a third group that we call the U-shape, and it's round about 30%. And these are people who, post that retirement shift, actually experience a dip. And for some people, it is quite significant. Typically, these people retire earlier than they maybe thought they would. Maybe they were saying, I'm never going to retire. And suddenly they find they have to. And or the timing's not of their choice. They sometimes have some health challenges, and they tend to have some unhappy or unresolved relationships, which can include partners retiring at different times and not having talked it through. So quite a lot of things going on there to change how people experience this transition, which we think will be very, very straightforward. So what we're going to cover with you over the next 20 minutes is what do we actually mean by this word retirement? We're talking about it, but what do we actually mean? We also want to talk about the fact, as Russ said, it's a transition. It's not a date in the diary. It's not a point in time. It's a lifetime of shift. The fact that you need to think about it as a huge opportunity. The key is planning, and that successful retirement transition is about so much more than the finances and the money. So we'll start off by this. What do we mean by retirement? Well, here's some things some other people have said. It's the point at which you can work for fun. You no longer need to work to pay the bills. It might be that it's the point at which you feel there's no one telling you what to do or where to go. You can make your own decisions. The date at which I no longer have to work. I can leave it all behind. Or maybe it's the start of the rest of my life. And it's not uncommon to hear people say that. However, quite often when we talk to people, what we hear people saying is it's the transition from being a somebody to a nobody. All that status, all that importance, all the things that work gives us suddenly gets left behind. So a little bit more, for a lot of people, if you mention the word retirement, they think about being bored. What will I do with my time? And there is quite a movement at the moment to actually retire the word retirement because of these negative connotations. Although for some people it is, as we said, that enormous opportunity for freedom. That in itself brings its own problems. For lots of people, there's an association with ill health. it's all about decline, it's about things going downhill. And that can stop a lot of people from deciding to retire. And some people say as well, it's just one huge vacation, never ending vacation. It's not. In fact, that's probably one of the most unhealthiest ways to think about retirement. So what we do know from research is that people tell us that it's actually an emotionally challenging milestone. And in some recent research, 24% said it was the third biggest emotional impact after having children, getting married. This was the one that knocked them back the most or challenged them the most. Some people have also found that transition's worse due to things like experiencing boredom, not knowing what to do. When we're working, we're often full on. In fact, there doesn't seem to be a moment in the day. In retirement, we experience time sometimes very differently. For some people, it was just a sheer amount of time they'd spent at home. They just weren't used to that. And for some, it was the lack of structure, which Jane will talk about a little bit more in a moment. What everybody said was that planning early is the key to the successful transition in retirement. So I'm going to hand over to Jane now, who's going to talk a little bit more about what that transition involves.
Yes, thank you, Anne. So I'm Jane Parslow. A little bit about me first. So my background is 30 plus years in project management, training and consultancy, moving over to coaching when I qualified in 2010. So I now work with people's personal change projects. We all know that change can be hard. So we have one way of looking at this, a model on the slide, which emphasizes really what Russ said and Anne has said, that it's not a single moment in time. The move into retirement is a transition and it can get very messy. So there's the point of endings, saying goodbye to work. What do you want to take with you? What are you happy to leave behind? You need to be thinking about the new beginnings. What will you welcome into your life? Is it feasible? Will you have enough money for it, for example? Will it be satisfying and fulfilling? And then the neutral zone, you may have heard of it called the liminal zone. We call it the messy middle. This is the bit where the fear creeps in that Russ talked about earlier, the uncertainty and so on. And this is a time when you should expect to feel a little bit odd as the transition takes place. So allow time for exploration, trial and error, try things out, and notice how things are changing as you move into retirement. The man who developed this model, William Bridges, says it's not the events themselves, it's your inner reorientation and self-redefinition that puts the change firmly into your life. And that's where we work with people, is through the messy middle, if you like. As Anne has said, planning and preparation makes that a much smoother transition. Retirement is indeed an opportunity. Russ talked earlier about life expectancy and so on. You may have 20 to 30 years of life after retirement, and we would hope that that's active years as well. We'll say a bit more about health in a minute. Some people want to keep on working, especially faced with that length of time, and that might be part of the transition to taper things down, as Russ talked about. And in fact, our parents' retirement is much less common. That retire on Friday, wake up on Monday, that's it, you're now retired. And as we've said, it's a much longer period of time. So that portfolio retirement, as we call it, the tapering off, doing a bit of work, trying out other things, maybe even starting a new business or a new role in retirement, is increasing. The opportunity comes really for all these chances to build growth and learning and fun and experimentation and fulfillment into your life. For a lot of people, it's the time when they can do all the things that they've never had time for, that work has got in the way. What would you do if work wasn't your focus every day? What would you want to keep? what would you want to leave behind? There's a lot of things. Someone said the other day that the A34, their route to work, would be something they would gladly leave behind. But there are some things that we'd want to keep. And even if you're thinking right now, well, I'm never going to retire. I love what I do. I might just do slightly fewer hours. Russ said earlier, you know, life has a way of retiring you sometimes for whatever reason. Russ talked about 3 phases, the go, slow go, and no go. In our experience, there's slightly more to it than that. Planning, we're all saying how important planning is going to be to a successful retirement. And a lot of you are already thinking about how to do that move. There's then the shift itself, possibly with this messy middle, as you go through the change. And that can be several months, it can be a few years for some people. The go phase we talk about as the honeymoon phase. This is very much where people are doing the things that they've been yearning to do during working life. Travel to the places they've never been to before, get the garden fixed up, do all those little tiny jobs in the house that they've never got round to. But those are really projects. Once they're done, they're done. And typically 2 to 3 years of that. And people are then saying, well, now what? Is this all? What can I do next? So there's another reset and possibly another big transition then into a more settled phase of life where now there's more of a routine. The activities that you've been experimenting with in the honeymoon period, you've now sorted out what you want to be doing, and those are built into your daily life, if you like. So Russ talked earlier about what a day in retirement might look like, and we encourage people to think ahead to this phase and what the day might look like. And then there's the later life, the no-go zone, if you like, which we would hope is much less of this phase. So it can be cyclical. You can go back through these different phases. The difficulties come as you move from one phase to the next. And the key point here is that it's not a single event, just a leaving party, but psychologically it can be over several months or years. This is where retirement becomes real. You wake up one Monday and think, well, this is it now. And that starts triggering your planning phase and into the retirement. Key questions that people ask us, and Russ has touched on most of these, I think. First one is, will I run out of money? Have I got enough for what I want to do in my retirement? What will I do? Well, those two go hand in hand, don't they? If you want to buy a big yacht and sail around the world, you're going to need rather more money than if your goal is to spend your retirement gardening. Who am I? And this is one I'll come back to in a minute, but work gives us a lot of our identity, a job title, some status and self-esteem and so on. And people fear a lot of what they're going to do when they don't have that from work. And the final one, deepest one probably, what is the point of it all? Where work has given us a purpose, what now when we're free to choose our purpose? So given those various shifts and the key questions, we have come up with a model, the 8 keys to successful retirement, based on research, as Anne said, but also our experience with our own clients. You'll notice finance and legal, so things like wills and lasting powers of attorney are there. I'm not really going to add anything to what Russ has already said and will say about that. But you will notice that there are 7 other key areas. There will be overlaps between these, and you will, as I go through them, kind of think, oh, that's the one that's most important to me. It's different for everybody. But working around from finance, health and well-being, this is going to underpin everything that you do. Are you in good shape, for example, for the climbing you want to do or the sailing around the world or whatever? Russ referred to health span, not always matching our lifespan. Our goal here is to try and make sure the two are pretty well matched so that you stay healthy for most of your retirement. And it's about the psychological well-being, how well will you manage the leaving work behind, for example? We also talk in there about positive aging and positive attitudes to aging. All of that can help reduce risks of things like dementia, for example. Activities and structure, well, this is about finding things to do that are more than about just keeping busy, not being busy for busy's sake. Work gives us a lot of structure. Other people impose meetings in our day, for example, but we need to think about how we're going to replace those activities and the structure that comes with it. Again, work very often gives us a sense of meaning and purpose, and it's important to think about what you're going to do after that's removed. This is the key theme here, is when work disappears, then what? Meaning and purpose can be very big. You can find a purpose that is what you were put on this earth for example, or it could be quite small. It could be enough to have a purpose to exercise every day or be the best friend that you can. It might also be about all those exciting things I mentioned just now, learning and fun and excitement. And that might be enough in terms of living a more fulfilling life. Identity, I said just now that who am I is a big question for people to answer. A lot of us introduce ourselves in terms of our work role. How will you do that in retirement? Over on the left-hand side, these areas are often neglected. So Russ talked about, have you talked to your partner about retirement? Again, it surprises us how often people haven't. But what about close family? Do you know their expectations of you and your availability in retirement? What about yours of them? Similarly with your social network. We often leave behind a lot of friends at work. How will we replace those? How will we keep the ones we want to keep? And that whole area about managing change. Some people are much more comfortable with the messy middle. Others need to have a bit more structure. So these are 8 areas that underpin everything we do and everything we suggest you plan for in retirement. Looking at all of these will get you clearer about what retirement means to you. So I'm going to hand back to Anne now to pull that together.
Okay, thanks, Jane. So the work we do, as you've probably picked up, is about helping people work through those things at a personal level. And we do a lot of that by asking questions. And this will be typical of the sort of thing what we'll be doing. So we're asking you, you've just sat through about 45 minutes of your life. So what is the main learning for you? What's your main takeaway from today? What do you need to work on right now? So some of those you've probably listened to and thought, that's okay, I understand that, I've got that sorted. But maybe you haven't thought about talking to your partner. Maybe you haven't thought about setting some boundaries with your family. Maybe you haven't thought about leaving the friends at work. So what do you need to work on? And most importantly, in our coaching world, is what's the first thing you need to do? What's the very next step that you need to take for planning your retirement from all the things that you've heard this evening? We can help you do some of that. So, for example, we have a monthly newsletter. We email it out once a month. We pick a topic. The one just coming out is about travel. The one last month was about all the different aspects of retirement. The one before was about decluttering. One before that was about finding purpose. You get the idea. We also run monthly online get-together called Retirement Conversations. It's free. It's lunchtime. You sign up and we talk about retirement. We always have a topic in hand, but mostly we respond to whatever people bring, and people share tips, ideas, talk about what's been challenging, talk about what they've enjoyed. Always lots of people on that one. We offer a free online discovery session for 30 minutes. So that's where if you've looked at something or you heard something tonight and thinking, I'd like to think that through a little bit more, I'll stress that's on the non-financial side. If you want the finances, you need to talk to Russ, not us. We do not handle finances at all. We are the psychological and emotional transition. On top of that, we have something called our retirement readiness review. So for those 8 keys, if you're thinking, I think some of those are okay, some of those I could delve into. Here's a tool to help you do that. You can rate yourself against each of those 8 keys. You probably can't read that. So just as an example, from there, you can see the 4 questions on wider social network. So do you have a network outside of work that will fill all your needs for connection? Do you feel confident replacing the friends you leave behind at work? So you get the idea of the sorts of questions that we ask. And if that is of interest to you, we will be giving people the access codes to that afterwards, I believe, Celeste. But also, if you're somebody that likes to leap on now, there is a QR code which will help you do that. So that was a very quick trot round some of the psychological and emotional challenges that we know people face in retirement. And now I'm going to hand back to Russ, who's going to take you through some more financial work. Over to you, Russ.
Thank you very much, Anne. So let me quickly get my slides okay, Celeste? Is it not sharing?
Yeah, we can't see them just yet.
1 second. Try again. That better?
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
There we go.
So as promised, I'll now talk to you guys about retirement cash flow modeling. So when it comes to retirement, cash flow modeling helps us understand what your life could realistically look like once you stop working. It'll show how your income, savings, pensions, and how spending might work together over time. It's just so you can feel confident about your plans. It also lets us explore different options, such as retiring a little earlier, spending a bit more time together, or adjusting how much you draw from your pension, all before you make any firm decisions about anything. That way you can see the impact of those choices in advance. I think by mapping everything out, what we can do is we can identify any potential gaps, and we can do that nice and early. We can make changes if we need to. It'll just help ensure that your retirement is both comfortable and sustainable. I think more importantly, it will just make sure retirement plans support the lifestyle you want. So that's just a little bit around the benefits. So I just wanted to talk and walk you through a simple example. It's a high-level scenario just to show you how the process works. In reality, cash flow modeling is always tailored to each individual client. So it'll be based on your circumstances, your ambitions, the lifestyle you want to maintain. But this example, it will just give you a clear idea of how the tool is working, how it helps us build a financial plan that's basically realistic, flexible, and aligned with your long-term goals. So the scenario was some of my clients, which was Mr. and Mr. Webb. In this scenario, married couple, both aged around 55. They wanted to retire in roughly 7 to 10 years' time. Mr. Webb was earning roughly around 38,600 a year, and Mrs. Webb was part-time working at around 12,500 a year. Between them, they just had several pensions. Mr. Webb, he's got workplace pension worth roughly 68,900. That was invested at what we call a risk level 4. So when we talk about risk levels, we're just describing how much your investments might move up and down over time. The scale runs from 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest, which is mainly invested into cash and safe assets with little movement. In this case, level 4 was what we call cautious balanced, still focused on stability, but it has a little bit more growth potential, smaller ups and downs. And 10 is the highest risk, mainly into the stock market. With potentially bigger rises, but also comes with bigger falls at times. So in simple terms, lower risk means a smoother but slower journey, and higher risk just basically means potentially a bumpier ride, but with more potential growth. Everyone's risk level is personal, so it depends on your goals, how comfortable you are with seeing your money move. It's something we explore properly together in our discovery meetings. Mr. Webb also had a collection of various other pensions, which totaled roughly around £80,000, and these were on an average about a risk level 5. And Mrs. Webb had one pension with her work, what was around £50,000, also invested at a risk level 4. Both contributing the minimum levels. They had 125,000 in cash savings and around £20,000 in premium bonds. For cash flow purposes, we always assume an average long-term return on cash is around 2.5%. Sometimes it's higher, sometimes it's lower, but that's a sensible long-term estimate. For this example, we've assumed their current monthly expenditure is just over £3,000 a month. Normally break this down into essentials, fixed costs, lifestyle spending, etc. But just for simplicity, we just use this flat figure. We've also included £6,000 a year for holidays, and that was during the first 5 years of retirement, those go-go years we talked about, those fit and healthy years when they wanted to travel. What they wanted to do was tick off the places they didn't get a chance to visit earlier in their life. So this is the cash flow chart. Each bar represents a year of your life. It's all the way up to age 100. The height of each bar shows your total pre-tax income for that year, with the different colours highlighting each source of income. The black line you can see running across represents their income requirements. You'll see it dip at first on this chart when the mortgage is paid off, and then it rises again just to reflect those dream holidays I was talking about. And then before that, it gradually reduces in later life, as you can see for those no-go and slow-go years we talked about earlier. Before we even ran this cash flow, we talked about the importance with the clients of keeping a cash buffer. For them, it was essential. It's just a simple and powerful way to protect against what we call sequencing risk. We aim for 12 to 18 months of expenses in cash on a platform or in very stable accounts. When I showed them this cash flow model, we ran a scenario where the markets dropped sharply in their first years of retirement. And without that buffer, they'd have been forced to sell some of their pension assets at the worst time possible. So the buffer, they could live off cash and wait for those markets to recover. And that one change massively increased their confidence. We looked at the withdrawal plan. The original idea was to take a fixed amount every year from day one. When we stress tested that against a couple of poor market years, it just shows how quickly things can go off track. So we talked about staying flexible, adjusting spending, slightly maybe in a bad year, delaying big purchases, or just going with that natural rhythm of the go-go, slow-go and no-go years. I think for us, the small adjustments in their life just completely changed their long-term outcome. By the end of the process, we could just basically see that those clear 2 steps, a cash buffer and keeping flexible with the withdrawals, just protected their retirement. It was just a great example of how proper planning can turn uncertainty into clarity. So let's look at their current position. So this is based on some assumptions. So for a 5.5% investment growth for the risk level 5 pension and a 4.8% growth level for their risk level 4 pensions. This carries 2.5% long-term inflation over the term and a life expectancy of roughly age 90. So as you can see, they might have enough, but it's tight. If they live beyond 90, the plan starts to fall into the red, which basically means they're running out of money. We call these red tails, or the danger zone, where longevity, inflation, lower than expected returns, for example, could just cause the plan to completely fail. That's the current position. When we did the advice and we talked about the post-advice scenario with cash flow planning, you can see it's completely changed. So we recommended using part of the savings to fully utilize 2 years of ISA allowances for them both. And basically any remaining surplus was just invested into general investment accounts. We also suggested increasing pension contributions to make use of that tax relief we talked about earlier. So £300 for Mr. Webb and £200 for Mrs. Webb, which was the net. We also reviewed their investment risk levels based on their age, the goals, retirement timeline. Their existing levels on their current pensions were too low. So we ended up agreeing to move Mrs. Webb to risk level 5 and Mr. Webb to risk level 6, which gave them more exposure to shares with more potential growth. And it was just a much stronger long-term outcome. As you can see, the impact immediately, like I said, instead of running out of money at age around 90, you can see there's a healthy surplus, even if they live to age 100. And that's based on sensible assumptions around returns, inflation, and longevity. And so what did it actually mean for them? So it meant more freedom, it gave them more choice, and it meant they had control on how they wanted to live that next stage of their life. I think more importantly than anything else, it just gave them more options. So under their original plan, they were heading for retirement at age 62. So when we did explore other options with that improved strategy I just spoke about, they could bring their retirement forward by 2 years. and they've still got a plan that lasts, yes, the pot has to stretch further, but the numbers still work. And what they gained was just priceless. More years together in those go-go years. So while they was active, healthy, they had more life, full possibility. It isn't just about retiring early. It was just about unlocking time. And that's one thing that money can't buy back once it's gone. So when we do this, we don't just build you a plan, we just push it to its limits. We stress test, like I said, all kinds of conditions, the things that keep you awake at night. So in this example, we've basically taken inflation and we've modeled it around if it stayed 5% for the next 30, 40 years. Very unlikely, I know, but in the last few years, it's definitely a scenario worth talking about. Under the original plan, the pension pot collapsed at around age 73 under that high inflation scenario. After the advice, it lasted to around age 82, so 9 extra years of income, even in that harsh inflation environment. And if in a personalized plans, we'll take things further still. We stress test basically your future. We don't just assume it. We'll look at what happens if growth is only half of the usual rate. We'll simulate market shocks, so things like banking crisis, housing crisis, etc. We'll even run early death scenarios for couples to make sure the surviving partner is fully protected. So it's all designed to just answer one question. So does your whole plan up even when life doesn't go to plan? And that's the power of cash flow modeling. So even after accounting for fees, investment charges, and advice costs, it shows how much stronger and more resilient your financial plan can be. So the benefits of cash flow, and I think I've covered most things, but we use cash flow modeling. One of the biggest advantages, it helps let you see the bigger picture. It gives you a clear view of how your money can work for you over the course of your life and naturally builds confidence in the plans you put in place. It'll help you understand what's possible so you can see the impact of different choices before you make them, whether it's retiring a little early, reducing the hours, or spending more time together. Well, you get to explore these options safely on screen without committing to anything. And the point of a retirement plan, obviously, it often can feel very overwhelming. And that's exactly why a personalized approach matters, because at the heart, personalized retirement planning is simple. It's all about you, your goals, your lifestyle, your priorities. So no two people live the same life. So no two retirement plans will ever be the same. So often people come to us with a clear vision, the age they want to retire, the things they want to enjoy, but most people don't. Most people live in busy lives. They want to know if they've got security or freedom, and they haven't had the time to define what really matters. And that's where we'll come in and help. We'll help you just step back, take a look at the bigger picture, look at things. Are you dreaming of an early retirement? Do you see yourself working a little longer? Do you want to travel? Will you be supporting family, children, etc.? What kind of lifestyle do you want? Once we understand that, we'll help you build a plan that supports it. And we won't just do it. It's just not a one set. We'll review that. We'll adjust it. We'll make sure everything keeps on track as life moves forward. And that's also the practical side. Managing your finance properly does take time, but most people simply just don't have that time. One of the biggest value that we can bring is taking that weight off your shoulders, reducing that stress, and just giving you more confidence. So just to let you know, whether you're beginning to think seriously about retiring or you're just approaching that next emotional significant step, simply want to be more proactive, it's worth taking a moment just to step back, have a look at things. If it means reviewing your income, your assets, how everything is structured, what long-term plan may look like, and whether there may be opportunities to do more or do things differently, we can try and help you achieve the retirement you're aiming for. So on screen, you'll see 2 QR codes, the blue one being ourselves and the one with the dinosaur being Retirement Pathways. For ourselves, it'll give you the opportunity to speak to one of us here at Flying Colours. It's relaxed. It'll be informal conversation just about how we can support your retirement planning. If you use Jane and Anne's QR code at Retirement Pathways, this is where you can begin that retirement readiness review. Conversations are all about yourself, your situation, your goals, whether there's anything we can do to help or help you with the retirement that you want to do. No pressure, no sales pitch, just no generic advice, just honest, straightforward conversation. So I think we may have run out of time, Celeste, for a Q&A. I did try my very best, but how are we doing?
So, Russ, could you just move on to the next slide? Just because
of
it's
course.
important that we highlight to people this important information to do with particularly investing. This evening's content is not advice, it's simply educational, and we don't recommend you take action based on what you've heard today. It's generic, and actually it's really important that advice you take is specific to your circumstances. So if you'd like to go back to the previous slide, Russ, I suggest that we do run through a couple of questions. I know you've answered, Russ, a couple that came in during the session, and a recording of this will be available afterwards for those people who need to leave now. So the first question I'm going to put to Anne and Jane, and that is, how important is it to have goals during retirement? Is it okay to just want to relax and take things as they come?
I'll take that one. And of course, relaxing is a wonderful way to spend some of your retirement. It's usually one of the things that happens in the honeymoon phase. So people quite often need some time to kind of recover from work and decompress a little bit. And at any stage you feel like it. I think, as I mentioned earlier, though, too much relaxing can then end up feeling a bit sort of purposeless, and people get a bit lost and dissatisfied. So it's good to have goals, even if it's just to get up and go for a walk today. So a mix of both, I guess.
Yeah, brilliant. So the next one, Russ, over to you. What other types of investments should be considered apart from ISAs? Do you think that perhaps your post-retirement investments should be more diverse to cover the ups and downs of the stock market? And if so, what investments can be considered? So you talked about this when you were talking about risk profiling earlier.
Yeah, so I mean, the answer is yes. Because I've already invested through an ISA by the sounds of it, and possibly a pension wrapper, I guess they're mainly in stocks and shares. So I think it's completely natural to wonder whether you look at other types of investments in retirement. I think one of the key things which I've mentioned briefly is sequencing risk. That simply means that the risk of the stock market falling in the early years of your retirement, just as you start taking money out. So if your investments are in equities, you could end up having to sell at the wrong time, and that's what will affect how long your money lasts. I think that's why people will choose to add a bit more balance to the portfolio, either just before or once they start to retire. It might just mean me keeping some more money in cash or as a short-term buffer, or using some lower risk assets such as bonds, etc. But I think by adding more diverse multi-asset funds is probably the way forward. I think the aim isn't just to avoid the stock market completely in your wrapper. It's to make sure you're just not relying on it on its own, especially during them early years when that timing really matters. I think if you've got a broader mix, it'll just help smooth up the ups and downs and just give you a bit more stability to draw income, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay. Next question for Retirement Pathways. Is there a checklist to prepare for retirement a year to 6 months before, such as how do you communicate your retired status to the relevant authorities, for example?
Yep. There is, I'll take that one. There is certainly a checklist that we provide. It's quite broad. There's an awful lot of things to think about. We've covered some of them this evening, and I've just about to turn, if somebody emails us, I've just put the general email in the chat there. If you just put an email to welcome@retirementpathways.co.uk and head it 10 steps, we'll happily send you the 10 steps document.
Brilliant. Thank you. It's not something I'd considered actually about retiring. Who do you need to inform? That hadn't occurred to me. So that's a good question. Thank you. Russ, back to you. What are the merits of drawdown compared to annuities?
I'll try not to take much more time. So the merits of drawdown. So when we're talking about drawdown versus annuity, the key difference is going to be the flexibility. With drawdown, your pension is going to stay invested, and you choose how much income you want to take and when you want to take it. So it means you can increase it, you can reduce it, you can pause the withdrawals, and it just depends what you need at different stages of your retirement. I think one of the great things with drawdown is your money has potential to keep growing, and anything left is always being able to be passed on to beneficiary, which many people value more than anything else. Whereas an annuity, by comparison, it'll give you a guaranteed income for life, which is obviously make you feel very secure, but it's fixed. Once you buy an annuity, you generally can't change it, and the capital that you've got is just no longer accessed because you were giving it over to that insurance company. So I think while your annuity will offer you certainty, I think drawdown will offer you more control, and gives you flexibility, and obviously leaving it behind for loved ones. The right choice just depends on the person, whether someone values guaranteed income more, if they prefer to keep their options open throughout retirement, it's down to them. Or you can do a blended approach. I've got many clients who basically do a combination of both. They'll use an annuity for their essential spending, your car, your bills, and then they keep the rest for drawdown for luxury items or for discretionary spending. But yeah, that's definitely a topic that if you would like more advice, it's a big one, Celeste, that one to cover. So
Yeah,
sorry to keep it brief, but yeah.
There's no one size fits all.
No, definitely not.
Retirement plan ultimately, is there?
No.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you ever so much. We'll leave that there as we've gone past 7 o'clock. Thank you to everyone who's joined us, and thank you very much to Russ and Jane. So thank you again, and we hope to see you again soon.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.